I don't think of George's nomination so much as an Entertainer of the Year nomination as an Entertainer of the Lifetime.
July moonlight shines, your pretty little head on my shoulder. Pull over.
We were interested to know how George Strait was going to handle the past year, and it's status quo. He keeps turning out hit records. He reaches his 60th #1 record on his 60th birthday.
Baby, fall into my kiss. It should just happen like this.
George was uncomfortable with it at first. It's a little sexy for him. And you know, being 60 years old at the time, he was not comfortable being sexy at 60 or acting like he was in any way younger than he was. The song had to go by his wife, Norma, to get approval. And Norma said, George, I think you misunderstand. You're sexier now than you were, you know, years ago. And this is very appropriate for you, and I think you should do it. And I'm glad Norma chimed in, because I don't think we would have cut that song otherwise. It was his 60th #1.
I don't think the Beatles did that. I don't think Elvis did that. I don't think anybody had 60 #1s.
That was a very exciting event on Music Row in Nashville, because in going to work every day and in doing radio and television on Music Row, there were signs springing up out of the yards. 60 for 60, you know, George Strait. What eventually became his 60th #1 record was #7 on the charts. And he had one more week before, you know, while he was still 60 in order to get that accomplished. And everybody was wondering, is it going to happen?
I don't even think I could pick a favorite. I mean, you know, George, I grew up listening to, yeah, there's so many great hits. I mean, 60 #1, that's insane. I've never heard anything like that.
George's accomplishment was at kind of a different level than everybody else's. It's about being at the top of your game in a career where you've already exceeded most people's career by a factor of 3.
But I believe there's someone who's looking after me, someone beside me night and day.
Love is everything. You know, that's been a big theme over the past couple of albums with him. He's had the song, you know, I Saw God Today, I Believe. It seems like he, over the past few years, has become very introspective. And maybe it's because he sort of knew that he wanted to wind down his career. And it's interesting because now that George's son, Bubba, has been getting into songwriting, Dean and Bubba and George have been getting together to write songs.
Those three guys wrote I Believe together, and it was one of the singles on Love Is Everything. But in addition to that, Dean Dillon is the guy who wrote tons of the original George hits. The Chair, Nobody in His Right Mind Would Have Left Her, all the things that make George George. And he was also honored in 2013 with the BMI Icon Award.
He's pretty much worked with the same producer, Tony Brown, for many years. He's worked with the same musicians in the studio for most of his career. He's had the same road band out there performing with him nightly for most of his career.
George Strait is a living legend, no doubt about it. And I don't even think he realizes he is.
George is so many people's idol, so many artists' idol, but George Jones is George Strait's idol.
The morning George Jones died, I was set to interview George Strait. And I got on the communication line with George. It was an audio interview with George. And I told him that Jones had died. George hadn't heard it yet. You could tell he was really hurt by the news. And it prompted him to say, you know, I was going to write him a letter. He had been asked to be a part of George Jones' last show here in Nashville, which was scheduled for that November. And the next time I saw George Strait was at that show. He was part of the tribute show on the 22nd. He wouldn't have missed it.
She was leaning on a rail in a cotton dress, summer tan, pretty little perfect.
One of the other singles off of Love Is Everything is I've Got a Car, and it's a good illustration of why George deserves to win the ASCAP Founders Award, which he did in 2013. It's one of those inspiring, great country songs that George is known for being a masterful interpreter of.
You know, one of the reasons I think that George deserves the ASCAP Founders Award is because of the songs that he's brought to life with that incredible voice.
George modernized what is today's country music using country western swing, whatever you want to call it. George was able to take the elements that was the foundation of country music, modernize it, yet keep it country.
He's a real songwriter, singer. You know, you can really make a career as a songwriter if you get George Strait to sing one of your songs.
2013 was a huge year for awarding George Strait, as 2014 will be, fingers crossed. And he was the recipient of the Country Radio Broadcasters Career Achievement Award. It's for all of his work promoting country music and country radio.
When you look at what he's accomplished, you know, the incredible number of hits that he's had, the touring, how he's consistently stayed strong on the live circuit, you know, and just the songs that he's brought to life with that incredible voice. You know, I really think George Strait's probably the best friend a songwriter Nashville ever had.
I played the rebel teenager, the mysterious stranger, the wild child on the run.
You got a song like When the Credits Roll, and so it's kind of structured around, this is the statement about the end of an era.
As far as the touring goes, I've decided that I'm not going to tour anymore after these next 2 years. And don't think I'm retiring, because I'm not. I still am going to make records.
I was really surprised when I found out that George Strait was retiring from the road, you know, surprised and disappointed like everyone else, because he loves the stage and he's such an incredible entertainer.
And I can tell you that there's already this little glint in his eye that maybe he overspoke, and maybe this may not be over, because it's just too much fun for him.
This has really been his victory lap. He is going on his final tour, and he's bringing along a lot of friends in country music, some of the biggest names in country music, for these sold-out shows all over the country.
Everyone loves George. I mean, George is the everyman. George is everyone's idol.
Every year that you get to be George Strait is an awesome year.
When the credits roll and the show is over and I see all the parts I played.